QuickBooks Pro Desktop 2021 Tax Line Mapping Schedule M-1 Reconciliation. Let's get into it with Intuit's QuickBooks Pro Desktop 2021. Here we are in our S-Corp test file. We currently have the open windows open. You can open the open windows by going to the View dropdown, selecting the Open Windows list. In prior presentations, we set up our information in QuickBooks, including the mapping to the tax lines, then exported our system out of QuickBooks to the tax return, or exported the information to the tax return to populate the tax return in Lacert, and then we exported to Excel to provide a reconciliation. So currently, if we go into the Lacert program, at this point in time, the page 1 of the 1120, there's basically 3 lines that we can reconcile to in terms of the net income. One, we have the page 1, which is basically kind of like the tax net income, or the taxable income. If it were taxable, it's a flow-through entity. But in any case, the 65,510 on the page 1 of the 1120S. So we've tied out to that 65,510. And then we can say, okay, then if I go to page 5, we have our M1 adjustments. Now, the first half of the M1 is our book numbers, so that should tie out to where we started with. So I'm going to go back on over and say that ties out to where I started with. Now, that doesn't tie out to what's in QuickBooks right now because we had that one adjusting entry for the depreciation, so that we'd have to enter into QuickBooks for a book basis calculation. And then, but we don't tie out yet to the second one over here, the 77,510. So the M1 adjustments being these two line items. These are the difference between the book and the tax, as opposed to the Schedule K adjustments, which are the items that are going to be the difference between what is on page 1 and what will somehow flow through in some way, shape, or form on the Schedule K to the individual tax returns, possibly to be reported in some other location on the individual Form 1040s. So now I'm just going to do a quick reconciliation for these two items. We can see exactly what the difference is. It's that 10,204 depreciation and the 2,000. So I'd like to go back then into an Excel and just basically do another reconciliation from here to do this to the K1 or the M1 reconciliations to get down to that reconciling item. So I'm just going to say, all right, I know what they are. One is that 2,000 right there. So I'm going to say the M1 adjustments are that one right there. And we might put a header, M1 reconciliation, and then we can put this one here. So that's going to be the M1 item here, and that's going to be equal to the 2,000. I'm going to make this a negative. I think this needs to be negative for that 2,000 here or here. And then the other is going to be the depreciation. Now the depreciation, we put up top this adjusting entry. So we've reversed the last adjustment and then recorded the current adjustment for this. So this is the current depreciation for taxes. This is the difference between the tax and the book. Now, we didn't put the other side down here because we put it up top to the accumulated depreciation up top here so that we can tie it into what would be on the depreciation schedule. So that's why this one's not down there nice and conveniently down below, but rather we have to pick up that difference, that change, that 10,204 up top. So I'm going to say depreciation, this is going to be equal to we'll pick up that 10,204, the 10,204, and then if I sum this up equals the sum of the 85, the 2, and the 10,204, that gives us to our 77,510, back to the tax return, 77,510 here, which is the M1 tax income. And so let's go ahead and then indent this, and we'll say there's that, and then possibly that. We can basically underline here, and so we could just get that reconciliation. So now we've tied out to all 3 line items. Book ties out to the tax return, page 1 of the 1120S, and then the tax side of the M1 taxable income, showing these 2 items, and we can see everything kind of pulled together. This is easier for me to see if I was to be audited or something like that. So now we have the reconciliation. In future presentations, we'll take a look at just a couple types of adjustments that may result, and how we can deal with those adjustments.